JFD, just fair and direct.
Okay, hello and good morning everyone. Welcome to JFD Traders Espresso with me, Darius Anucauskas. Today is the 26th of June 2020, so yep, welcome everyone. Welcome to this Friday's morning live session where we're going to have a quick look at the markets, a few of the charts, the usual stuff basically. But before we do that, as always, let's quickly have a read through our risk disclaimer. So, the content we produce does not constitute investment advice or investment recommendation, should not be considered as such, and does not in any way constitute any invitation to acquire any financial instrument or product. As always, a few seconds for you to read the rest and we can continue. Okay, so now then, also just before we jump into the charts, quick mentioning of our JFD YouTube channel, to which you can always subscribe to in order not to miss any of our upcoming videos, and of course our JFD Bank website, and specifically our JFD research page, which we also update on a daily basis. So yep, feel free to visit us here on jfdbank.com and click on the research tab right there on the top. Now then, quick update on what's happening here globally. So yep, as you can see, the figure continues to rise, unfortunately. Well, that's not something new, but currently it's roughly near the 9,600,000 level. Of course, some other sources give a bit of a higher numbers, but as I've mentioned yesterday, let's see if we can hit the 10 million mark by the end of this week. So to be honest, it seems like a good, well, a decent probability, I would say, because unfortunately again, it is the reality for now. So now then, let's have a look at what's happening with the markets here. The Nikkei, this is the one that I wanted to touch on first. Nikkei 225. This week I talked a lot about this one, and basically, as you can see, it kind of ended the week almost kind of unchanged, I would say, and kept on moving roughly between these two levels, the 22,125 level on the downside and the 22,624 zone on the upside. So in a way, for now, basically, we will well, of course, we'll keep this for next week. Now we want to see how all this is going to perform. We'll keep an eye on the cash index as well. We'll see how it's moving today with the rest of the markets, the European indices and then the US indices. So it will be quite interesting to see. So most likely we'll have a nice either opening gap here, either to the upside or to the downside, basically getting out of this a little kind of pattern, I would say, this little triangle pattern. So for now, this is what I was mentioning, guys, to you this week, that we need to see a nice good violation of one of these lines, either the downside or the upside one, and in addition to that, a breakthrough one of these levels here, and the ones that I just mentioned earlier, the 22,125 or the 22,624 zone, and ideally a nice daily close outside of this little range here could be a good kind of well, could kind of clear up the view on the next directional move. But again, for now, we can't really do much here. Jumping into the German DAX, so here the situation is kind of also a bit tricky. Yesterday I talked about this index, and I was telling you guys to keep a close eye on these two levels, the 12,133 on the downside and the 12,484 zone on the upside. And as you can see, the index initially drifted lower on Wednesday. The index closed below this 12,133 zone. This is what I was saying, that if we get a nice daily close, further declines could be possible, and the index did move lower. However, as you can see, by the end of the day, kind of yesterday, the bulls managed to quickly push this one back above the 21-day EMA, this way kind of indicating that this this EMA is something to watch out for, because at the moment it seems like it's acting as a good area of support. So of course we'll keep an eye on it. The index managed to get back into this little area here between these two levels. So as I mentioned before, it will remain probably a little bit on the neutral side if it continues to trade here. For us to get a little bit more comfortable with higher levels, we would like to see a nice good push, a strong move above the 12,484 zone, and then we could consider higher areas. If by any chance this sells off sharply and moves lower, as long as this upside support line taken from the low of the 19th of March remains intact, still this move lower could be seen as a temporary correction before another leg of buying. Only if this upside line breaks and the price starts falling below the low of the 15th of June, near the 11,598 zone, only then we will aim for further declines. FTSE 100. Now here the situation is also a little bit, let's say, I would say problematic. It's kind of really stuck, I would say, and stuck between these two tentative lines, a short-term downside line taken from the high of the 8th of June and the short-term tentative upside support line taken from the low of the 22nd of May. So as long as it kind of stays in here, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to observe the price action. In order for us to, let's say, to get a little bit more comfortable with higher levels, we would need to see a nice good push above the 6,310 barrier here, and then yes, we could aim for slightly higher levels, initially kind of targeting the current highest point of June near the 6,512 zone. In terms of the downside, a drop below the 5,962 territory could do the trick here for more sellers, as a break below this level would confirm a forthcoming lower low, and yep, further declines could be possible. Gold, quick update here. Yesterday the commodity moved higher and kind of ended the daily candle near this 1763 level, the one that I kept talking about. And you can see today we're seeing a bit of a correction here to the downside. Now all this is kind of still quite healthy, because it could drift a little bit lower and test this 1748 zone or this short-term upside support line taken from the low of the 5th of June. And in a way, if it does provide support, then yep, we could see another round of buying, and the pair could drift towards the 1795-96 territory, which is the highest point of 2012. But again, for now, we'll probably take a bit of a cautiously bullish approach, because we want to see if this precious metal will actually drift a little bit lower and test this area. If it does, and if this area does provide good support, then we may see a nice rebound and a push higher. But if that gets broken, then well, maybe this is where we could start looking at some lower levels. However, still, for us to maybe start considering the downside, a drop below the 1723 level could be a bit of a better scenario. Ethereum, I talked about Ethereum yesterday, and basically I was telling you guys to keep a close eye on this 227.50 zone. So not much, to be honest, has changed here. So we're still keeping an eye on this area, because in a way, as we can see here, the crypto is kind of trading within a range here right now. So since probably around, actually for the whole month of June, the crypto has been moving sideways here, roughly between these two highlighted areas, the 227.50 zone on the downside and the 252.50 level on the upside. So for now, we need to wait for a clear violation of one of these areas. Ideally, a daily close outside of this range could do the trick here for more either sellers, either buyers, because again, if we do see a drop below this 227.50 territory, and we see also a nice daily close below that, then maybe finally more sellers could join in here and drive the zone lower. However, as you can see, this level here, the 217 territory, did provide decent support as well, so we'll be very careful here. But if that fails to withhold, then yep, further declines are possible. In terms of the upside, straightforward, we need to see a nice good push above this highest point of March near the 252.50 level, and then we could consider a new higher high. Now then, jumping into NZD CAD. Now I talked about this pair this week, and basically, as you can see, this for the whole week the pair remained within between these two levels that I was talking about on Monday, and basically the pair is now climbing higher again. Now the big question here is, can it finally overcome this 0.88 territory? Now this 0.88 barrier is the highest point of December 2019. You can see that this year the pair did create a new high, but it failed to kind of close above this barrier, above the 0.88 level, and that's why it would be quite interesting to see if we can actually overcome it today. Well, today's Friday, so maybe a perfect ending for the week, or if it doesn't do that, then maybe something for next week. But again, keep your eyes on this 0.88 barrier, because a nice good daily close above that could of course open the door towards higher levels, and then we could start aiming for the 0.8890 or even above that. Similar story is here in AUD CAD. Now let me just get rid of this upside support line. AUD CAD is near its key resistance barrier, which is roughly near the 0.9457 territory, but just slightly, probably slightly below that. That's what we would need to mark here, something like this. So in the 0.9426 maybe. So this is where we, after a break of which we could start looking at some higher levels. So in a way, a nice good push initially and above the 0.9426 level would confirm a forthcoming higher high, and yep, maybe higher levels could be met. But again, we need that confirmation break first. We cannot really talk about any upside yet, although it is indicating that it's willing to travel higher. Still, what we don't want to get here, we don't want to get caught out in a possible range where, let's say, the pair could travel a little bit higher, test the 0.9426 territory, and then basically reverse back down. So we've seen something like that happening many times, even at the same NZD CAD, for example. So keep your eyes on here on AUD CAD. Keep your eyes on the 0.9426 territory or the 0.9457 zone, which is the high of the 8th of May. US dollar against the Mexican peso. Now I've touched briefly this week on this pair, and basically just wanted to kind of run it by you. It's quite interesting. It's quite technical. You can see that yesterday the pair failed to kind of stay above this barrier, the 22.81 zone. I talked about this level this week, and basically today we're keeping a close eye on this again, because we're very close. We're still above the short-term upside support line taken from the low of the 10th of June. But basically we cannot really do much here. We just need that confirmation break first before targeting slightly higher levels, like for example the 23.55 mark, which is the low of the 11th of May. And again, as I'll repeat myself, a nice daily candle close here above this area could do the trick here for more buyers. In terms of the downside, we need to see a violation of this upside support line and a drop below the 22.2855 territory, which is the current lowest point of this week. The reason why I'm saying the current lowest point, because, well, it's still Friday, so anything can happen, so that's why we'll be very careful still. US dollar against the Japanese yen. Now here it's a bit of a tricky situation. I mean, after the pair drifted lower and found kind of support near this this area here, where it previously found support as well in May, near the 105.94 level, the pair reversed higher, and as you can see, it's now again struggling with this barrier, how it did previously, this 107.32 zone, which acted as a very good area of support here in the end of May, and also a good area of resistance around mid-June. Although we did have a few overshoots, but still the daily candle kind of struggling to remain nicely above it. And also this level coincides with the 21-day EMA right now, but to be honest, we're not going to focus on this too much on these EMAs, because Well, I mean, for now, overall, it seems that the pair is a bit on the flat side. So that's why we would prefer maybe to wait for a push above the 107.32 level initially. Then, of course, just for that extra confirmation, a push above the high of 16th of June near the 107.64 level would confirm a forthcoming higher high, and maybe yep, further acceleration to the upside could be possible. But until then, we're not really doing much here. We're just observing the price action and keeping our eyes on these two levels that I just mentioned. In terms of the downside, the 105.94 level, that still remains the one, the more attractive level for us, after a break of which we could consider lower areas. GBP Aussie, now here also the pair is moving sideways for kind of the whole week, but as you can see, it still remains below this downside resistance line taken from the high of the 4th of May. So in a way, for us now, let me just quickly adjust this. For us now, basically, we could continue targeting the downside because the pair continues to trade below this this downside line. However, we'll be very, very careful, and to be honest, preferably now, given that the way everything kind of shaped up this week, we would prefer to see a drop below the lowest point of this week near the 1.7917 territory reached here on the 23rd of June, and then we could consider further declines. But until then, we'll take it carefully here, because in a way it could break this downside line as well, because we are quite, let's say, overstretched here to the downside on even looking at this daily chart. But until that break happens, we cannot really talk about any upside. And previously I talked about the 1.8250 territory, or 1.8249 zone, as being that level after a break of which we could consider higher levels. But given that we've shifted a little bit more to the downside, now we could keep an eye on the 1.8137-38 zone, somewhere around here, and then we could start aiming for higher levels if that level gets broken. And finally, Euro USD. So here again, the mess continues. I mean, as I've mentioned yesterday, we are neutral in this one, because at the moment it's really not giving us any clear picture. On one hand, the prevailing trend is kind of still to the upside here. However, I mean, this kind of consolidation right now, it's not really helping anybody, and neither the bulls nor the bears. And for now, basically, we're kind of sitting back and kind of just observing the price action. So we would prefer to wait for a drop below the 1.1168 zone in order to aim for further slightly lower levels, I would say. But in terms of the upside, we would wait for a push above the 1.1353 level, and then target slightly higher levels as well. Until then, we're not really doing anything here. So guys, I really hope you found it useful. So thank you very much for watching and listening. If you want to join me later on, my traders tea time is always 13:15 GMT time. For now, guys, I hope you have a wonderful trading day. Stay safe, and I'll see you later. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.